tell you about our friends at the Pied Piper Diner, located at 1605 Route 100 in Bartow, Pennsylvania. They're just minutes from the Lehigh Valley and surrounding areas, a charming, cleanly, down-home diner that offers a large menu selection, large portions with reasonable prices, home-style cooking, homemade desserts, a senior menu with breakfast and dinner specials just for our senior citizens, all served by our family-friendly staff. Visa, MasterCard, and Discover Card are always accepted. Small groups or large groups up to 50 people are always welcome, but we do ask that you call for availability at 610-845-0000. Takeouts, as well as whole pies and cakes, are also available by calling 610-845-0000. Like us on Facebook and ask about our gift certificates. Also, don't forget to check your receipts for coupons valid for the next visit at the Pied Piper Diner. So again, always remember to follow your taste buds to the Pied Piper Diner. Tell them that you heard it on the Country Variety Show, and one day I'll see you out there.
For the Lehigh Valley, it's in more than our name. The Lehigh Valley is in the values that Embassy Bank lives by and shares with our customers every working day. The Lehigh Valley is where Embassy Bank started and will stay, providing exceptional service for local families and businesses. Get the service and values you deserve at Embassy Bank for the Lehigh Valley. We're the Lehigh Valley's bank.
Welcome back here to CWTAP. My name is Alex Fydryszewski. Great to be with all of you once again, and a happy Martin Luther King Day, national holiday here in the United States. So all the kids home from school, so parents, well, I hope you have them in bed because, well, they have school tomorrow. But I always enjoyed the extra day off. And then, you know, as a kid, you don't really think about it. But when you grow up and you become an adult, you realize just how much more impactful it is. So, hey, it's a great day, and it's a great day to talk soccer. Joining us right now on the phone, let's jump right into this here with the show with the corner kick, is JJ Pepe. He's a local Lehigh Valley soccer pundit. How are you doing this evening, JJ?
Doing excellent, Alex. How you doing?
Oh, I am doing absolutely fantastic, and there's quite a bit that we do need to discuss this evening. Obviously, the MLS transfer wheels are turning as the season approaches. The Galaxy are leading the charge. We'll have Josh Gesman on at 8:30 from Corner of the Galaxy to do a little more specific discussion about them. But as far as having you on board here, there's plenty of other stuff to talk about. And I'll turn over the floor to you right off and say, you know, where is it you would like to start out? I know I had sent some questions along, but wherever you feel comfortable to begin is where we'll start tonight.
Let's dive right in. New York City.
All right. Well, you know, it's no secret then. Last year, the Blue Boys up in the Boogie Down from the Bronx struggled defensively. They surrendered a tie for the league worst at 58 goals. And they're an expansion side, and expansion sides in systems like MLS usually don't go very well their first year. They get thrown to scraps from everybody else, if you'd like to call it that, and they're not necessarily the most organized, not necessarily what the coach wants in terms of his talent. And NYCFC, you know, they really weren't much different under the now terminated Jason Kreis, which, if you ask me, that might have been a little bit premature considering what he had to work with and how they had to then try to integrate players in over the course of the summer. They're not the youngest guys in the world either, specifically Lampard and Pirlo. They're going to get only older as it goes. And you and I have talked about this. We've talked to Josh about this with some of the Galaxy targets. Age is an issue, and I think with some of the guys NYC is looking at now, specifically the big news out of this weekend was that they have brought in a left-back Costa Rican national teamer, Ronald Matarrita from Alajuelense. He's 21 years old. That might be a bit of a way to try to make that long-term fix for that problem. Do you have any take on him or any of the other rumors going around New York right now?
Well, I think it's good first signing to try something in that back line. Like you said, they were just dreadful in the back. It helped. It didn't matter much when they played on that postage stamp in the Bronx. A couple of those up and down games that were on TV made for great entertainment, but definitely didn't help Christ in any way. I haven't heard much else on the rumor mill there. I had a blackout weekend, so I'm catching up with you. But I think starting in young Costa Rican defender, it's gonna be interesting to see how he settles in. It's always a jump up for a lot of players coming in. But I think he's going to hit the ground pretty well.
I think, you make a good point, too, about Costa Rican players. I think they transition maybe a little bit easier than some of the players from some of the other Central American countries. Their domestic league specifically at the top is a little bit better, a little bit stronger, and their national team players usually do pretty well on the whole in MLS. Roy Miller was pretty good over his time with Red Bull. Jairo Arrieta was another player. Saborio, who've really made nice careers for themselves, in the league. And I think, if you are MLS, maybe New York City, you have a large ownership group with quite a bit of cash, but at the same time, you have to play by those rules that MLS has to go down to a country like that and find a prospect with some real value. From what I understand, they've signed him to a 4-year contract. So that could turn him loose potentially as he hits his prime years. You might have some sell-on value there.
Definitely. And, the big thing I think through the league, and it's recognized, is left back is always a problem. So I think going out and getting somebody who's been, playing at one of the top, 2 clubs in Costa Rica, he's going to have experience probably playing in some bigger games in an intense atmosphere. So I don't think any of those are going to be issues. It's just going to be how quickly can he adapt with, possibly an entire new back four. Thankfully they'll have the goalkeeper in the back, but I think it's safe to say they're pretty weak up the middle as well. So he could be left on an island at times unless they shore up other areas. Yeah,
I think you make a very good point there in terms of depth in the back and players across the back. You're talking a big hole to fill. 2 of their better players that they had last year in Shea Facey and Angelino were loanies from Manchester City. So they got a little bit of help there from, if you want to say, the mothership or the father club, whatever you'd like to call them, the parent club, their sister club. And those guys did pretty good at, they were teenagers at the time. And Facey, he just took a loan out with Rotherham, so he's out of the picture. So, for New York City, they certainly have to try to find some holes at the back there. And in terms of their returning players, you do have some veterans, but again, they weren't necessarily the most solid group in their first year together. A player like Iraola, who arrived in the summer, isn't getting any younger. So I think you make a good signing like Matarrita. That's a good first step. And then, while we're on it, when we talk about a little bit weak up the middle, there's some good names up the gut in the midfield for NYC, but they didn't necessarily deliver to the level I think fans may have been expecting. And for what it's worth, most designated players, when they make that big jump, their first half season's pretty rough. But these guys, I think they might have struggled to adapt a little bit more than your average.
Yeah, I think David Villa is probably the best one coming in when you start at the top. Frankie Lampard, he was, to me, always going to struggle. He was coming in off of that long season. He was signed with the group, not the club. Then he went over to City, where he was playing some good minutes on older legs in the Premier League, and then had maybe 3 weeks off, came in, started training, and went right into the thick of it in July. Pirlo, for me, he's going to be an interesting character. He's a way older version of what Giovinco was. Great up front, can see the pass, but how many times did you see him just not defending? But it's something I don't think he's been really asked to do in his career, and that could still come back to bite them a lot this coming season.
Well, I think that's another good point. He's really been that kind of midfield wizard his entire career, where his job has really to just been turn and look forward his entire time. And now you're asking this guy at, what's he, 37 now, to become a box-to-box player, because in MLS, with the way the game plays, the pace of the game, the talent level around you, as that big name, they expect you to shoulder that much more?
I think that kind of expectation, if that's what New York City had or Jason Kreis had, was definitely a big mistake. In addition to shoring up their back four, they need to find a solid defensive midfielder in front to either protect what they've got or, possibly some new guys are bringing in until everybody can get together. I don't think Lampard is that player. So they may need to look to do something up front where maybe they have Villa with Pirlo just behind him, so it's not expected he's coming back. Use Lampard to connect defense to strikers.
And as far as the draft went for them, they did get a good one in Jack Harrison, but again, not that defensive hole that you're looking to fill. He's much more of an offensive-minded midfielder. So unless City's prepared to outscore teams this year, which, given the roster, it's not necessarily out of the question, especially David Villa had a great year last year. But there are still some holes defensively for them. You jump across the river, Red Bull, everything's pretty much died out. Pulido, that seems to be dead in the water, and we'll get to that in a minute. Miazga looks, as of now, there's 12 days, 13 days to go in the window. Looks like he's probably hanging out. Kamar Lawrence, I haven't heard much on the Leicester front about him either, so unless there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, or that a guy like Dave Martinez at Empire of Soccer, who's very well connected in the New York market, finds out that or doesn't know about, they look pretty much set. There's 28 players on their roster. You figure everybody else now will be playing against the likes of Bethlehem Steel for their reserves.
Yeah, the last time we spoke, the Miazga and Lawrence stories were just hitting in all the rumors. New York Red Bulls can weather that storm. They're going to be in pretty good shape. My concern, the only concern I have really with them is they just need to make sure they don't stand still. You see that all over the world. I think you saw it with LA Galaxy this year. If you don't bring in good players to improve the side, challenge for spots, or even take a couple, you tend to get left behind by some other teams making some big moves. I think you only have to start looking what's going on north of the border there in Toronto to kind of see they're finally, it looks like they got their hands around things on where they need to improve, and they could be one to really challenge the Red Bulls in the East this year.
Yeah, they certainly seem to be to be kicking on all cylinders. You jump down to Philadelphia briefly. They've brought in a few players over the course of the last week or so. Obviously, they had a pretty decent draft. They ended up with Josh Yarrow as a defender. They actually came away with several defenders over the course of the last week. Also brought in Anderson Conceição. He's a Brazilian defender on loan. They were another team that really struggled in the back last year. Maurice Edu, who's really naturally a defensive midfielder, was platooning at center back for portions of the year. So, it's going to be a new look in Philadelphia this year as they look to fill out their roster. And they also brought in Walter Restrepo, who was with the New York Cosmos. So that's another interesting move there. And then sent Michael Lahoud on loan to the Cosmos. There's a bit of a relationship seeming to build between those two as well.
Yeah, it's interesting with all the changes in Philly in the front office area, how this is really going to trickle down to the team and how quickly. They have, I think, a very large mountain to overcome here. They were decent at times, but never really got going last year. They did have the Open Cup run, but they were penalty shootout away from New York from not even sniffing anything deep in the tournament. So they've got a lot to do. They could really use upgrades all over the park. The good thing is Jim Curtin, one full season under his belt. Hopefully him and Ernie Stewart will get on, and he'll get some security there where he can really work to mold this team. I think they're maybe a 2-3 year project, but initially you can overturn it in one with some solid signings.
Oh, I think, with the way the league is set up in terms of its parity, that's possible. Like you said, you can do this in 1 year. Philly, I agree with you, might be a 2-3 year project, but they've got the right man, if you ask me, to spearhead the sporting side of it. Ernie Stewart, he's obviously very well connected into Europe, which if you're Philadelphia, I think you obviously would like to exploit. The conversations I've had with Jim Curtin have been very brief, just at some of the press conferences here in the Lehigh Valley as they unveiled Bethlehem Steel, but he seems like a guy who's really got his act together and really wants to develop a good relationship between his two teams and use the Steel as a way to try to develop some younger players for the future for Philadelphia, which I think with their residency academy, which from what I understand is the first of its kind in MLS, that's something they can exploit. And if they can keep their core group of coaching together with him and Sorber and guys like that, they've got MLS experience. They've been around the block before. Philly could be onto something in the next couple of years.
They definitely can. What you're starting to see more is the academy program and this homegrown player is becoming more and more important. When I was down in Baltimore, I was talking to a staff coach of one of the clubs, and he was commenting from the combine how the talent just seemed a lot less from the players who were available for the draft. Then you look at a club like the Red Bulls, they signed 7 players in a week. So I think Philadelphia and some other teams who maybe were working in the academy area but maybe not putting as much into it are really starting to set up their game, realizing that's how they're going to keep these younger players from having to go into the draft, and then they're going to have a foundation to build on. I think the Red Bulls last year proved that that's a successful way to go.
It is. I think you make a good point with that. And Baltimore, now, were you at the coaches' convention?
I was. Had a little work to do down there. Some of it involved crossing paths with a few staff members, so that always helps.
I'm jealous. I'm hopeful that next year I'll be able to make it down there. While I've got you, because we do have a little bit of time in between here, and we've got only a few more topics to cover. What was it like down there? At that National Coaches Convention. How many sessions did you attend? Who did you get to talk to? What was your role down there? What was it like?
It's an unbelievable event. From what I picked up, I believe they topped their attendees record, the NSCAA, for bringing coaches in, even beating last year's Philly. And they still had a day to go, which was Sunday. I was able to catch a little bit of Phil Wedden's session, former goalkeeper coach with the women's national team, still involved with the national team programs. He was putting on a keeper session. Also got to meet with some new U.S. soccer educators who were putting on a session. Met with them beforehand, and they were doing some unique stuff on the field there. So that's what I got to see in that area. It brings the whole soccer world together. Youth coaches, high school, college, and then you have the MLS draft. So you have all the club, coaching staffs. You see executives. So it's really a place to be, and if you're going to try and get to one next year, someone to go to, because it's going to L.A., and it's January, and you know how cold it can get here.
Oh, well, hey, listen, we got spared so far, but it seems like winter's on its way. L.A., book my tickets today. I am in. I'm in. To get away from winter for a weekend even? Oh, fine. But speaking of, let's shift a little bit further west now. Big rumor maker this January has been the Colorado Rapids. They obviously have a wealthy businessman as an owner. It seems that Mr. K is prepared to flex those financial muscles. I don't have any, but I'm pretending to show off my financial muscles to those viewing at home. But first and foremost, it seems like the Rapids are near a deal to beat out the Red Bulls for Mexican national teamer Alan Pulido. He's at Olympiacos in Greece. His contract status in Mexico is a mess, but it looks like they are the leaders for him. They've got a designated player striker, an Irishman, Kevin Doyle, one of Robbie Keane's strike partners for the national team, but overall the bite just hasn't been there for Colorado.
Yeah, I think anybody they can bring in to spearhead an attack is going to be a really good upgrade for them. When you see them looking at somebody like a Pulido, you got somebody he may be over in Europe, but he knows CONCACAF. And like you're talking before with Costa Rican players coming in and adapting, he should be able to do fairly well hitting the ground if they do indeed bring him in for the start of the season. So I see those as a couple good upgrades to, like you said, give him some bite up top. Surprisingly, moving on the goalkeeper situation there, moving Clint Irwin today. So it's going to be interesting to see how that portion develops, being that they kind of lost their, what turned out to be a very, very good keeper between the sticks.
He was. One of the real bright up-and-comers in MLS. Now, the question, I think, on everybody's minds, because of an article that appeared on the Major League Soccer website, is that the Rapids want national team goalkeeper Tim Howard. He's 36 years old, but he's contracted to Everton through 2018. From what it sounds like, he's very content in England. I know he's stated multiple times he'd like to end his career in MLS, but he seems to be far from that point. Right now, though, the trade of Clint Irwin might open things up a little bit where if he wants to come back, I guess Colorado certainly would be willing, though I imagine a signing of Tim Howard is going to cost you a designated player spot as a goalkeeper.
Yeah, Timmy Howard's an interesting case right now. You're starting to hear some unrest amongst supporters. Even some of the reporters covering the team. Martinez has been very loyal to him. I'd be surprised if Howard moved in this transfer window. Just because I don't see him not seeing out the season. But, with his age, at some point, if Martinez decides in the summer it's time to go younger, Howard's going to be playing, FA Cup and League Cup matches and, in the event the number one gets injured. The problem for Colorado, if they bring him in the winter, is they're going to lose him for, about a month for when he has to go into national team camp in May for the Copa America in June. So, I think bringing in, I think it was McMath from Philly, could prove very important if they do or don't get Timmy. Maybe they're putting some stock into him.
They very well may. He's a guy who's not necessarily been bad throughout his career. In Philadelphia, I think in a lot of ways he fell victim to the goalkeeperitis that they suffered from for about 2 years there, where at what point they had, 6 or 7 of them, something like that, contracted to their team, and somebody had to get thrown to the wolves somewhere, and more often than not, unfortunately, it ended up being him for him. But again, I think that it's a good move to bring him in, because he is your starting goalkeeper if you don't get a player like Tim Howard in. We've got time for, I would say, one more topic. I know you had said you'd leave Chicago to me, but you had heard another rumor about Chicago. If you'd like, would you like to start off, and then I'll finish it off?
Yeah, it's been reported today. Vidic's contract with Inter is about to be dissolved through mutual agreement. So, right away, the connection was made to Chicago's new head coach, and this could be a possible signing for Chicago. The worry I think you have to have if they bring him in is He had a hernia surgery at the start of the season. He hasn't even appeared for Inter. He's 34, going on 35. He's going to have some slow wheels there. And, one thing we've seen the last few years in MLS, if you have slow legs at center back, you're going to be in for a rough time.
Yeah, certainly, and then on the other end of this for the Chicago Fire, one of the newest additions to the MLS rumor mill today, they are now apparently in the running for 24-year-old Polish national team defender Marcin Kamiński. He spent his entire career at Lech Poznań in Poland. They're one of the bigger clubs. He's been a mainstay for them since his teenage years, competed in Champions League qualifiers this year, and then was also with them for the Europa League this year. Chicago certainly needs help defensively. Vidic and him together, that would certainly be an ideal situation where you have veteran leadership and then a guy who's just starting to come into his prime, who could really step up and be a leader for you. And then also you've got two guys to connect to two very large ethnic immigrant communities that still exist in Chicago, especially for a player like Kamiński with the Polish community. And obviously, I'm biased. I know a little bit about them, but for both of them, that could be a good way for Chicago to try to make some more inroads, get some more people out to games, things like that, and continue to build their brand.
Yeah, it'd be an ideal center back pairing, I think, when you look at the younger, fresher legs, the experience. You'd hope one could cover for the other in different situations. Positioning from Vidic, speed from Kamiński, and then if you have a couple other young guys on the roster, Vidic can help bring them along to where maybe you don't have to call on him to start every match as you get through July and August. Through those dog days. In the heat of Texas and everywhere else. All
right. Hey, that always becomes a question when you look at players coming to North America from Europe. It's one thing to play in Manchester when it's 60 degrees in May. It's another thing, like you said, to step into Dallas in August when it's 100 degrees and the humidity's 96%.
Yeah, and, to save legs, especially for some of these older guys, I think all these clubs have to do something, figure out a way. New York City's in that boat. It looks like LA Galaxy is going to be even more in that boat with their potential, rumored signing. So, all these teams have to try and figure something out. Maybe it helps Chicago a little more, middle of the country, 3 hours to each coast, no real 6-hour flights. So something like that might be able to get a little more out of an older player for him.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. It's that midpoint in the United States where you're not flying those long coach flights, and that's a whole nother topic for another day, how this league is still forcing their teams to travel the country on non-chartered flights. But that's neither here nor there, and it's something that players have to get used to, and whether you like it or not, I hope you like the 33 inches of coach.
Well, I'm sure one day we'll touch on that subject and have a few laughs on what those poor guys go through.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the most glamorous of leagues in terms of its travel, but it is growing. Obviously, the attendance nearing 20,000 a game across the league, so it's in a good spot going forward. We do have to go to break, but I'll give you the final word.
Well, it's going to, silly season's in full swing, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens next 2 weeks, both at home and abroad. Players coming in, possible players still trying to get on their way back, over to Europe. So it's going to be fun, and I can't wait to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, it should be really fun. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll definitely look to have you on as silly season, the transfer window wraps up. And again, we wish you all the best. Thank you for taking the time out of your day, and we hope to have you back very, very soon.
All right, Alex, thanks for having me, and I look forward to the next time.
Hey, thank you very much. That's J.J. Pepe. He's a Lehigh Valley soccer pundit. Very, very happy to have him on here this evening. Keep it tuned. We'll be back with Josh Gesman from Corner of the Galaxy after these commercial messages.
The best-kept dining secret of the Valley, the Vineyard Restaurant. Traditional Italian cuisine offered in an intimate casual setting. Every order prepared freshly on the premises. Select from a diverse menu, special appetizers, spectacular pasta, fresh seafood, veal chicken and steak entrees, the most delicious homemade desserts, and for 2 years, honored for best wine selection voted by Reader's Choice. located at 605 Fiat Street, Bethlehem, in Fountain Hill, just west of Route 378, 2 blocks south of St. Luke's Hospital. Serving hours, Sunday through Thursday, 4 to 10 p.m., Fridays and Saturdays, 4 to 11 p.m. Comfortable accommodations are available for private parties up to 65. Ask about our gift certificates. Call 610-867-2441. Visit www.thevineyardrestaurant.net to peruse our tempting menu. Enjoy, relax, eat well at the Vineyard Restaurant.
Here at Deals TV, we offer full service. We sell a quality product at a fair price. The LG brand. When we deliver a new TV to you, it includes free delivery, hook up the equipment, show you how to use it, and removal of your old TV at the same time. If you have trouble, need us for service, we offer full service, pickup and delivery in-home. Also, if you're unsure of how to use all these cable remote controls, satellite remote controls, all the wires, all the remotes, you have any confusion, we'll be happy to help you through that. We also do microwave oven service.
Follow your taste buds to the Pied Piper. Hi there, friends. It's Kevin Carl from the Country Variety Show, and I would like to take a moment now to tell you about our friends at the Pied Piper Diner, located at 1605 Route 100 in Bartow, Pennsylvania. They're just minutes from the Lehigh Valley and surrounding areas, a charming, cleanly, down-home diner that offers a large menu selection, large portions with reasonable prices, home-style cooking, homemade desserts, a senior menu with breakfast and dinner specials just for our senior citizens, all served by our family-friendly staff. Visa, MasterCard, and Discover Card are always accepted. Small groups or large groups up to 50 people are always welcome, but we do ask that you call for availability at 610-845-0000. Takeouts, as well as whole pies and cakes, are also available by calling 610-845-0000. Like us on Facebook and ask about our gift certificates. Also, don't forget to check your receipts for coupons valid for the next visit at the Pied Piper Diner. So again, always remember to follow your taste buds to the Pied Piper Diner. Tell them that you heard it on the Country Variety Show, and one day I'll see you out there.
For the Lehigh Valley, it's in more than our name. The Lehigh Valley is in the values that Embassy Bank lives by and shares with our customers every working day. The Lehigh Valley is where Embassy Bank started and will stay, providing exceptional service for local families and businesses. Get the service and values you deserve at Embassy Bank for the Lehigh Valley. We're the Lehigh Valley's bank.
All right, and we're back here at CWTAP. Alex Fydryszewski with you, and joining us now for the second portion of the program tonight. He's a returning guest, just as JJ was. He's featured on one of the earlier editions of the Corner Kick in December, and he joins us from the corner of the galaxy. Podcast, that is. Though in reality, it's a long way from Emmaus, Pennsylvania to the bright lights of Hollywood. Josh Gasman, welcome back to the Lehigh Valley.
Alex, thanks for having me. Certainly appreciate it.
Oh, always good to have you on. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Major League Soccer right now, specifically in the Western Conference. Salt Lake City just made a big splash, bringing back Yoram Movsisian. The Colorado Rapids are throwing rumors about, in terms of pretty much every player that could possibly be available in the continent of Europe. And then Los Angeles, things have changed quite dramatically since you and I last spoke. LAFC, your not-so-rival rivals, because they don't really exist but now exist, had their grand unveiling. That even included Will Ferrell up on stage. They're obviously a heavy-hitting franchisee group there, but again, it's not a rivalry, at least not yet. So we'll touch upon them at the very end, and you guys can talk about what Galaxy fans think of what that'll be. But getting to business of the Los Angeles Galaxy, Bruce Arena, he's the master negotiator in this league, and he's brought in some nice pieces to the puzzle, and then he's in negotiations with another handful of players who are foreigners and have lots of international experience. We spoke about Ashley Cole before, and that'll lead us to another player, but that seems to be kind of dying out. But Cole is heating up still, correct?
Yeah, Ashley Cole, for all intents and purposes, and one of my good colleagues at the LA Times, Kevin Baxter, has done some great reporting on this, says that basically Cole is done. We'll see if that all pans out, but for the foreseeable future, it looks like Ashley Cole will be in an LA Galaxy uniform. Roma has released him from his contract, or bought out the remainder of his contract, so really all the paperwork left to do is clear through the league from what I understand from reading all the reports, and Ashley Cole will be a member of the LA Galaxy at the very young age of 35 years old.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes it's better late to the party than never. And MLS is quite the party to be a part of. Now, one player, it seems like, at least earlier, a week ago, was going to potentially be a part of the LA Galaxy. I had a handful of questions about him, and then it got chopped in half today, and that's Joleon Lescott, Aston Villa defender. They're doomed. They're going down. It would probably take a miracle of miracles for them not to go down, but it looks like he's going to stick it out with them from what you have heard.
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, certainly with the LA Galaxy being sort of the draw that they are in Major League Soccer, they certainly get a lot of transfer rumors that come their way. And this Lescott one was one that maybe didn't have as much of a base as we originally thought. But whenever it was announced that the LA Galaxy had made a supposed offer to Aston Villa that was somewhere in the range of $6 million US, it sort of took it out of the realm of possibility. It was somebody creating a rumor that didn't understand MLS salary cap structure and quite honestly wouldn't know where the LA Galaxy would really get $6 million in a transfer fee. So it sort of died out. It's been refuted by Alexi Lawless, said that the LA Galaxy have never made an offer and got that directly from the club. And then Jeff Carlisle from ESPN said that he had talked to Aston Villa, or at least he had talked to Lescott, and Lescott said he never had any discussions with the LA Galaxy. So that one seems to have fizzled, but other one's still in the fire.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions. 3.5 million pounds, translate that, do your conversion, that's about $6 million. I just couldn't envision the Galaxy spending that much money on a 33-year-old outside back. So
it doesn't make sense.
Right, not for what they're after. If they were going to spend $6 million on a transfer fee, I would imagine that they would much rather be bringing in a player, say, like, just to pick a name, a Santi Cazorla or anybody along those lines from the Premier League, not necessarily a guy like Lescott. Now, the second player on the rumor mill is seemingly moving forward at a much more rapid pace in the eyes of, say, how Cole is moving, and that's Jelle Van Damme. I think I'm saying his name right. I would hope so, Mr. Van Damme. He's a Belgian international. He's tried his hand at several clubs in England, but he found his most success back home in Belgium. And not that that's a bad league to play in. Sasha Kljestan found great success there before coming back to Red Bull, and he really helped engineer their midfield. And then the Montreal Impact hit a home run past the city all the way out to Halifax with Laurent Simon from the very same Standard Liège that Van Damme is the captain of. That said, Transfermarkt listed him as moving. There was no value attached yet, but it listed him as going to the Galaxy. So he's the captain of Standard Liège. This isn't a tiny club. What kind of a signing is he for the Galaxy?
I think he's a really solid signing. If you're following the MLS draft, where the LA Galaxy had one pick in the first two rounds, they had the number 12 overall pick. They actually traded that pick, and one of the things that's kind of interesting about that is they traded to the Colorado Rapids for TAM, that targeted allocation money that we talk about. So we knew the LA Galaxy had their full assortment of that targeted allocation money at $800,000. So with that trade, however much money that is, because in MLS we never know, they actually acquired more TAM. So So I wouldn't be surprised if you see Van Dam, who from his Instagram account says that he's coming to the LA Galaxy, and it sort of seems like that's already a foregone conclusion, much like the Cole one. I think that you could look at a player who's making the league maximum plus maybe dips a little bit into that TAM range. If not all of that TAM goes to another signing I'm sure we're going to talk to. But this Van Dam plays in... He's usually more comfortable in the left back role. He plays in the center back role, which if you're looking for a direct replacement for Omar Gonzalez, which he could possibly be, then he's going to play in the center. Now, who he's going to play in the center with, Leonardo, AJ De La Garza, things really start to move around once you place Ashley Cole and start bumping Robbie Rogers around, and I think we talked about that last time. The depth on this roster really opens up with the multiple positions multiple players can play, so it gets kind of crazy, but Van Dam seems like it's a good signing. He does carry some baggage, though. He was accused of this racism part with Oguchi Onyewu for the U.S. men's national team. So there's sort of that history. We'll see how that plays out in L.A. whenever he talks about it. But he seems to be at least talking the talk right now as far as wanting to come to L.A. So it's going to be sort of interesting to see how Bruce fits him into the lineup.
Well, it's better probably to have multiple options than not enough. I think for the New York Red Bulls, they saw that down the end last year as defenders got called up and injured. It helps to have 6 or 7 guys who you can bounce around the back line. And for the Galaxy to be able to bring in not just one very talented national team type player, but to be able to bring in, even in his late 30s, a player like Cole. Now you've taken your experience level to a level that is higher than probably any back line in the league at this point, and really puts LA into the driver's seat in terms of probably the best defense in the Western Conference now, especially now that you've brought Dan Kennedy back to Los Angeles, and he's with the Galaxy now as well in goal.
Yeah, no, it is. It's going to be interesting, again, to see all these pieces. There's so many different ways you can do it. And the Ashley Cole rumor, I think the last time we talked about why would the LA Galaxy spend so much money on Ashley Cole to bring in a 35-year-old veteran. But, details have sort of leaked out that deal is now worth substantially less in salary and against the salary cap than what anybody thought. So we thought it would be, in that TAM range, so over the max budgeted player around $430,000 or $453,000. I can never remember exactly what it is. But we thought it would be over that. It now looks like it's at $300,000 or possibly lower. So at 35, do you take a flyer on Ashley Cole? Think he still has something left at that amount of money, and then you look at everything it does as far as backing up different positions. It backs up the Robbie Rogers position. It allows Rogers to move up the left mid. It allows AJ De La Garza to come in and tuck in, play center back, which may be his best position. So there's so many moving pieces now. I think mostly LA Galaxy fans have spent the last couple days just trying to figure out the Rubik's Cube of different lineups they could put out there.
Well, and I think you make a good point too for Cole on the number that he may be then coming in at, if it's a little bit less, and 2, if you can bring in some more players as the Galaxy are looking to do, maybe you don't need to use him every day. If he's a guy you use once a week instead of twice a week, then then it could prove to be a very good signing for the Galaxy. And then speaking of center back options, they also signed Jeff Larenowitz. He could play center back as well, or defensive midfield. Do you see him getting any time this year, or is he in LA more to be a backup of sorts?
No, I think that if you see the age of this roster, I don't think anybody's going to be playing, every single game, especially with the Champions League to start it, U.S. Open Cup, and then obviously the MLS regular season, all 34 games of that. So there's a bunch of games to be played. Bruce Arena came out and said, hey, listen, you have guys like Robbie Keane and Steven Gerrard who aren't going to be able to play every minute of every game this year. So, you look at how he's building this with multiple backups at different positions, and you can understand that Jeff Larenowitz, I think, is going to play, an important part in this team, having to play in that, central midfield, defensive midfield role, and possibly switch out with, another signing.
And well, that another signing, maybe this is the one that you were implying we were going to talk about, the Galaxy. They're shopping for a Juninho replacement. Obviously, he's off to Mexico, and it looks like they're trying to now line up a move for Nigel de Jong.
Yeah, that's the rumor. The rumor on this one seems like it's going to pan out as well. This is that TAM signing that you sort of look at. So whether or not the Colorado money comes into place with getting that additional TAM, or whether that additional TAM is used for Van Dam, you know that you have the full complement of that targeted allocation money that you're able to put on Nigel de Jong. And at 31 years old, it seems like it could be a good signing. I mean, there's lots of question marks in this one, but you're looking at a salary somewhere in the $1.25 million range if they're going to put that full assortment of TAM at de Jong. But that's all sort of speculation. We probably won't even ever know what those numbers are until the actual salaries come out with the MLS Players Union. But this is one of those signings that sort of has Bruce Arena written all over it. A 31-year-old sort of has fallen out a little bit with his current team. Hasn't played a ton of minutes recently. I think 3 90-minute games since August, and he hasn't played a competitive match in over a month. He is that defensive midfielder. Hopefully they can back up somebody like Steven Gerrard. There were some great articles written today. One of them was by Will Parchman, who was talking about, MLS isn't so much an age league as it is a fitness league, and whether or not these guys can stay fit. So the big questions for all the older players, including de Jong, if he comes in, is whether or not they can stay fit for the 34 games plus the CCL and the U.S. Open Cup. And I think Bruce has provided enough backstops around that that's a possibility.
He's certainly looking to build that depth, and I think the faster they can get players into Los Angeles, because let's face it, we're, just about 1 month and 4 days away, give or take 5 days, from the first leg of the CONCACAF Champions League knockout stages. And the Galaxy have quite a hill to climb with Santos Laguna, who, again, they're not having the best year, but those Mexican teams, especially when you go down there, that's always a tough fight. So the faster he can get his roster together and try to get them some cohesion, some minutes together, whether it's just in a scrimmage, it's closed doors training matches, or they'll have a friendly coming up with Chirac from Armenia that you had mentioned to me that they would be having. Do you have any bit of information about when that will be and what they might be looking to get out of that?
Yeah, it's January 30th is that game, so it comes up almost as soon as training camp starts. Training camp officially starts on the 22nd of January for the LA Galaxy. I can tell you that their captain, Robbie Keane, has seen to it that they are already out there and doing some training without any coaches. Of course, when you have Robbie Keane, who's a licensed coach, that's not really a possibility to ever play without a coach for the LA Galaxy. So they're already out there moving around. I heard that some of these signings could possibly be in by the 25th. That's an estimate. I think the LA Galaxy are looking to bring everybody in as soon as possible, get them in. Usually in the past, that FC Chirac game has sort of been used as a little bit of a proving ground just to get a starting team, quote unquote, some 45 minutes, and then the second team 45 minutes of play, and sort of see where it goes from that. But you can expect the LA Galaxy to play a lot of closed door scrimmages as they normally do before the season starts, and they'll also be playing the San Jose Earthquakes in Las Vegas. I forget the exact. Let's see. It is the weekend of February 13th, I think, because it's over Valentine's Day.
Okay, so that gives them really an opportunity 1 week out from Champions League to get what should be a live fire game, if you'd like to call that, where they'll be moving at full speed by that point.
Yeah, and I skipped over the other one. Is they'll be playing Tijuana. That's the team that Juninho went to. They'll be playing them in a preseason match as well. So we'll get a little bit of Mexican competition, I think, in between the FC Chirac game and that San Jose game.
Well, I think then as far as the Galaxy go, Bruce certainly knows how to get them ready, and to kick things off with Chirac, which sometimes might seem more like a road game in Los Angeles than a home game. But it's a good night out for the community, especially obviously for the large Armenian community that's out there in Southern California, to get to see one of their teams. And for Bruce Arena, he gets to see what the Galaxy can do against a team that's in mid-season from Europe. Given the Armenian League's coefficient isn't necessarily the best, I think they're 48th or 49th out of 53 in Europe, but they develop some decent players and usually send them abroad there. So that's a good way to get things started, and then you start to build, obviously with Tijuana and the Earthquakes for when it really matters. Now, to continue that trend of building a roster, he's also been very active up top. They've sought to add further depth to what is already a pretty good pool of talent. To that end, they've brought in Mike McGee. He seemed a bit unsettled during his time in Chicago. He had a fantastic first year, struggled a little bit, had some injuries, things like that. They brought back Alan Gordon. That's perhaps a good thing. And then a move for the future might be Emmanuel Boateng. So why don't we handle this in order? Start with McGee. Here's a guy, he's got 81 goals in MLS. He spent his entire career in the United States, portions of it in Los Angeles. So what does his return mean for the Galaxy? What does he bring to the table?
Well, I think first for the fans, it's a great homecoming. He is beloved in Los Angeles ever since that 2011 game where he ended up playing goalkeeper for around 60 minutes against the San Jose Earthquakes in San Jose, and has a league goals against average of 0.00 because they never scored on him the entire time. So he's a beloved signing for the LA Galaxy as far as the fans are concerned, and quite honestly, at 31 years old, I still think he has something left to give. He has been injured with Chicago. Clearly that was an issue. But if you remember the trade that started all of that sent Mike McGee to Chicago for Robbie Rogers, or basically the rights to Robbie Rogers, as he had retired and then come back out of retirement to join Los Angeles, this was a trade that was sort of looked at by LA Galaxy fans as a horrible, horrible trade, and how dare you do that to Mike McGee to bring in somebody who hadn't played in a while. And so if you could have told them that, 2 years or 3 years down the road, you would have Mike McGee and Robbie Rogers, I think that they would probably be okay with that. And the LA Galaxy certainly got a lot out of that trade. But Mike McGee won 2 MLS Cups with the LA Galaxy in 2011 and 2012. He is a great locker room guy, somebody who's really going to be able to fit in. And we talk about depth. He can play up top at striker. He can also come back and play in the midfield, as he did with the LA Galaxy. And his postseason goal scoring, 8 goals for the LA Galaxy in the postseason. It's the clutch goals that Mike McGee scores. And so, we'll see what he has left in the tank now. He's 31, coming off injuries. There's a lot of question marks, but I think he's happy to be back in LA.
I think, and two, he provides a little bit of coverage for Keane, who, as you said, he's not getting any younger. McGee's not getting any younger, but he's still a handful of years younger than a player like Keane, where if he could spell him a game or two, that McGee is a proven goal scorer. That can certainly help. Moving on, Gordon, he's been consistent in Major League Soccer. He's not necessarily the most skilled with the ball at his feet, but he seems to be that no-quit guy. He's hustling constantly, always challenging for the ball. He'll hustle, and then because of his hustle, at that right moment, he always tends to be in a good spot to at least have an attempt on goal. He's 34. What kind of contribution can Gordon bring at the MLS level still, even if it's maybe just for one more year? What kind of a role will he have?
He's a super sub. It's sort of what he's known for, and then also trying to captain some of those younger teams in the CCL or in the U.S. Open Cup whenever he has to go out there and sort of suck up some minutes for some of the other guys. But quite honestly, another great locker room guy. I don't know how much stock some people put in locker room guys, but Alan Gordon, Mike McGee are 2 guys who know how to have fun but also be focused as professionals. And I think that some of that chemistry was missing last year in the locker room, and I think that perhaps this year it's going to be a little bit better with the addition of some of these players who are coming in. But you look at Alan Gordon, he's not very skilled with his feet, although I've seen him score goals with his feet just to defy me, I think. But he's tall. He likes to run and bash around and hit people and get a little chippy. And if he's on your team, you love Alan Gordon. If he's not on your team, you hate Alan Gordon. I think that's okay for LA Galaxy fans because he has, he sort of, like you said, he sort of finds a way to be in the right position at the right time. 3 game-winning goals in 2015, second on the team to Robbie Keane's 5, I believe. So he contributes even in the small amount of minutes that he normally gets, and another, I think, relatively good free agent signing for the LA Galaxy, keeping Alan Gordon for another year.
Yeah, absolutely. If if I separate media and become a fan, he's a guy I would love to have on my team, also in that same age bracket, kind of like a Connor Casey type guy who is chippy, but the guys these guys score goals. If and for the Galaxy and for their fans, yeah, you love this guy to the end of the world because he's on your side and he's not kicking at your players. But he is a good player, and to spell more minutes again. This is going to be a very long season, starting out right out the gate. And let's say the Galaxy get past Santos Laguna. Well, now you're tacking on 2 more games and maybe 2 more games after that if you make it to the final of Champions League. And before you know it, add in Open Cup and things like that. Now you're approaching 50 games. You need that depth. Now, furthering along that depth, this brings us up to Boateng. Here's a kid, he's born in Ghana, ends up at a school outside Santa Barbara, goes to college for 1 year, plays with the Ventura County Fusion in the PDL, and somehow from that finds his way to Helsingborg in Sweden. 37 matches in about 3 seasons there. What does he bring to the table?
He's a little bit unknown for a lot of fans, and myself included. I mean, ultimately what we know is that he's a striker. He's 21 years old. He's left-footed, and he has a lot of speed. But, I mean, you look at that, and just from the prospects of being 21, being young, and having speed, and being a left-footed player, it gives you some options to maybe do some things that maybe you haven't done before, whether you put him on as a right midfielder and let that speed run down and let him cut into the center. It's well-known Bruce Arena loves to take guys with the opposite foot and put them on the outside and let them cut into the center. He seems to think that's a good idea. He did it with Landon Donovan. He's done it with some of the other players as well. But with Gyasi Zardes up top as well, maybe Boateng and Zardes can pair up and have a young, up top, very quick strike partner. So there's lots of options for him. It's going to be fun to see where he fits in. I'm not necessarily thinking that he's a starter right off the top. Obviously, with a lot of forwards, that's a big stretch. I think he'll probably spend some time down with the LA Galaxy too, which is the USL part of the LA Galaxy in U.S. Soccer's 3rd division. I think that's going to help him as well. But I think he's going to be there for games like maybe a CCL game or maybe a U.S. Open Cup game. At 21, it's a good investment right now to sort of put this in, and he's had success on the international stage as far as playing as a full professional in a different league. And so he comes to the United States. He seems probably more well traveled for most 21-year-olds. It's an interesting route to sort of make it back to Major League Soccer. But the Galaxy, who stole Sebastian Lletget last year and really sort of came up with a diamond in the rough that not a lot of people were paying attention to, this could be another one. And the fact that he was in California before leads me to believe that one of the coaches, and I haven't got a chance to ask them this yet, one of the coaches knew about him and sort of knew his story, knew what he was about, and had targeted him as somebody they wanted to bring to the LA Galaxy.
Well, if you have that in place, it gives you a good time to give a good opportunity where the Galaxy did, where you can surrender some draft picks in favor of some homegrown players or a signing like this one. I don't necessarily, I had thought about asking as a question, does that say something of what Bruce Arena thinks of college soccer? But Bruce Arena was a college soccer guy for how long in his life. The Galaxy have had some good success in terms of the college draft. But here's a loaded question for you, and we've got about 5 minutes left. Do you think there's a better route? Is college better? Is pro better right away? Every kid selected in MLS draft is in this limbo of sorts for the last 3 years where they're looking for an NPSL or PDL team to play for in the summer, trying to stay fit. And then here you have Boateng, who is a full-time professional in a pretty good league in Europe. It's pretty solid. And I think maybe even more so, is there a right answer? And it might just be one of those, it's up to every player in each situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can certainly say it's up to. I think a while back, maybe even as little as 5 or 6 years ago, you'd say, oh, well, if you have the option to go over season play, you go over season play because you need to have that experience, and that's important. I think now it's more of a toss-up. I'll be honest with you, though. I think the days of the MLS draft are going to be numbered here more and more. And you talked about the homegrown players and the fact that, LA has 5 or 6 homegrown players signed right now. Gyasi Zardes was a homegrown player. Jose Villarreal, Oscar Sorto. There's some others. Bradford Jameson IV. These are all young kids who are all homegrown players that didn't go through the draft. Gyasi Zardes would have been a first-round draft pick if he wouldn't have gone through the LA Galaxy Academy and gotten that homegrown player. So, I think there is something something to that perhaps college is dumping these kids off in a position that's maybe too late to become a professional soccer player. We in the United States have to twist our thinking a little bit. Whenever we say, oh, this kid is young at 21 years old, international soccer-wise, that's not young. That's a youngish player, but 17, 18, 19, 20, those are young players whenever you look at whenever they can finally, become professionals. So I think in the United States we sort of have to shift our thinking a little bit and understand that whenever a kid is 21 or 22 years old coming out of college, perhaps now it's too late for that gigantic jump up into that pro sort of environment. So I think there's going to have to be a shift eventually. I think Bruce Arena thinks that for the most part, the draft has sort of outlived his usefulness. In fact, he has 2 more or 3 more picks in the 3rd and 4th round, and it's the supplemental round. And I'm sure if he could get rid of them, he would, because ultimately those players either won't get signed or they're going to go down and play at LA Galaxy too, down at the USL level. So it's interesting to sort of see this shift and see Bruce Arena and Pete Vianis, who's in charge of the academy and has sort of developed this program. It's interesting to see their mindset and how it goes right now. It's certainly a time to be paying attention if you're looking for how the pro leagues are going to get talent in the future.
I think, I think again, you've really summed it up well. At 21, 22, you're really actually not that young as a player. That's a really good point, as opposed to players in whether it's South America or Europe or even in Australia in the A-League. They're coming through at 17, 18, 19 years old. And, in the United States, our guys are still going off to college and coming back, out at 21, 22, they might be, maybe a little bit behind the ball. Here's a final question for you to kind of wrap all of this up. And 19 other franchises are thinking this right now, and that's how in the heck are the Galaxy making all of these moves under the cap? You've started explaining how that's happening. Of course, there's the eternal conspiracy theorists towards MLS that are, the Galaxy's their baby, they get to do what they want, MLS will favor them. Listen, Josh, I don't know what happens behind closed doors. I'm not privy to those discussions. You aren't really privy to those discussions between LA Brass and MLS. It's a legit question for some people, but in all honesty, more than anything for me, my final question is, what is it about the Galaxy, about Los Angeles, that allows them to position themselves to be in the running for so many high-quality players simultaneously?
Yeah, I think it starts and stops with Bruce Arena and what he's able to do as far as his networking internationally. The Galaxy, with AEG as their owner, have a really solid base to go out into these European countries and sort of lay the groundwork for a lot of these deals. And some of these deals, take years to develop as far as when the Galaxy are going to get players, and some of them happen really quickly. But the LA Galaxy, with the reputation they do in the league, and being the team that always pushes the boundaries, always seems to be dragging MLS forward, whether some people see it that way or not. The Galaxy sort of position themselves for success that way, and their plans don't always work out. They make some bad signings on occasion, but ultimately it's about pushing the boundaries and laying the groundwork, and Bruce Arena does that better than anybody. And until he falls flat on his face, and he could even do that this year, and I still wouldn't think any less of him, you sort of give Bruce the benefit of the doubt, and whenever they're making these signings, you have to understand that most of the time they have the rules well within their grasp, maybe even better than some people at MLS headquarters.
Well, and I think that's a great way to kind of put the punch to it, and I'm with you that Bruce Arena's the mastermind, and as long as Bruce is in charge, you can probably be rest assured that the Galaxy are going to be contenders. They're going to be at the forefront of the evolving U.S. soccer scene, and they're going to be the ones pushing that evolution. And you're in a very, very good spot, and you get to report on a very, very interesting team both on and off the pitch. We are just about tapped on time, but I will give you the final word.
I think this is going to be a really interesting year for the LA Galaxy. Lots of changes, almost complete shift in philosophy with going a little bit older. It's going to be really interesting if you're an LA Galaxy fan or if you're a league fan to see how this plays out, because it could fail miserably or it could be really spectacular.
Well, I guess now it's just time to sit back, wait and see. Obviously, I would love to have you on at least one more time before they go down to play Santos Laguna in Champions League, and we can try to maybe recap some some of the signings as we see what happens in the next week or so. But Josh, thank you again for coming on the program tonight.
Alex, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thank you very much once again, and we'll be in touch. That's Josh Gesman. You can follow him on Twitter at jgesman, and also at Corner of the Galaxy, their podcast there that he's a part of, at Galaxy Podcast, and www.cornerofthegalaxy.com. That'll just about do it for us this week. I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in. Hopefully you were with us from the Echoes of Europe all the way through the Corner Kick this evening. I'll join you fine folks next week here at CWTAP at 8 o'clock. And if you live in the Lehigh Valley, come on over to Moravian College Wednesday night. We'll be there. Moravian versus Scranton men's basketball. Be there or be square. And until we meet again, God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. And have a wonderful, wonderful week from all of us here at CWTAP.